to Biztech's Jobs and Careers show. Our guest for today is Anurag Bhalla. He's the co-founder and managing director for Asia at Outsized. Outsized is a high-end independent talent platform for enterprise and consulting clients in the APAC region, Africa, and the Middle East. Now, to tell us more, Anurag, welcome to the show.
Hi, Brian. Thank you very much for having me on. Appreciate it.
Now, Anurag, give us an overview of Outsized and your growth trajectory since you started.
Absolutely. So we launched the business actually nearly 8 years ago now. It's been a slow but strong build over the last 8 years. So we've seen sort of a doubling of growth year on year as a company. And over that time, we've expanded into a broader range of markets. So we started in India and in one market in sub-Saharan Africa, so in Ghana. And then from there, we sort of built out across Africa, South Asia, Southeast Asia, Middle East. And now we're just recently setting up office in Melbourne to sort of push into the ANZ region as well. So it's been a great journey for us as a company. We've really, on the outset, took the view of building a sustainable business for the long term. As slightly older founders, we took a very early decision that we wouldn't chase short-term tactical growth. We'd focus on building a really sustainable, solid business that generated profit, that we could build, that was going to be here in 10, 15, 20 years. It's been a great adventure to do so.
So how have you funded this business? Has it been customer funded or have you basically got outside capital?
Yeah, so we bootstrapped the business for the majority of the time. So we self-funded it ourselves. We put a lot of capital in ourselves as founders. So there's now four founders within the business. So we put pretty much, we betted our futures on the business. So any spare capital that we had went into the company. And we were also supported by a number of individual investors, angel investors, a combination of people that we worked with, our sort of personal networks that really believed in what we were doing. And then only recently, at the back end of last year, we brought in our first institutional investor. So we're now partnering with Knife Capital, which is a VC fund headquartered out of Cape Town in South Africa. And for us, you know, we wanted to build a business that could sustain itself. And that's why we didn't take outside capital early. We wanted to build a business that was unit economic positive, that could generate profitability relatively early, and then could self-fund itself. And our view on raising money isn't essentially the target. The target and the milestone isn't to raise funds. It's to build a business that is attractive enough for potentially someone to be interested in investing. But the key question we had to ask ourselves is, do we see where we can deploy capital to drive significant growth beyond organic growth? And after 7 years of really getting to product market fit, growing our business, understanding the business, we had such clarity on where we could deploy those dollars to drive growth, how we could build out the technology aligned to the customer need to solve real problems, that we decided to take that external capital. Okay,
give us an overview in terms of your product and service offerings, because through my lens, you definitely help customers. Tell us more.
Yeah, so I think the first thing to say on that is we have two customers, and that's really an important differentiation. So a lot of talent businesses or platforms in the talent space will focus on one customer, which is essentially let's call it the demand side, right? Organizations seeking talent or seeking capabilities. We took a very early decision that we have two customers as a marketplace business that's bringing together large enterprises with high quality independent talent. We decided very early on that both of those sides of the market needed to be our customer. And if they're your customer, you have to deeply understand their needs, their challenges, their problems, And then you have to create value propositions, services, and products and solutions that solve those problems and meet those needs. So essentially, you're sort of building out two value propositions, two businesses, right? And our job is then to connect those. So let's take those, I guess, one by one. So you asked around what are the services we offer, right? And what problems are we solving? So let's take the client side. Let's take an organization. So the first thing to say is we work with large enterprises. So big global consulting firms, big enterprises across our markets. And what we saw in the market was big companies were built on an old world of doing business in terms of lots of fixed costs, lots of building fixed capabilities in large buildings. And success was how many thousands of people did you hire in how many offices and how many locations? What we predicted and the bet that we made was that big organizations were going to face an increasingly unpredictable, volatile market environment. So whether that's competitive volatility, market, environmental, social, political, economic, big companies were in a world that was very unpredictable, very volatile, where things were changing on a monthly basis rather than a five-year cycle. And to win in a very unpredictable environment, you need agility, right? How are you successful in a volatile environment, unpredictable environment? You have your fleet of foot, you're agile, you're flexible. And big companies weren't anything like that, right? So our view was organizations to win in this new environment needed to build flexibility of capabilities. They needed to be able to change and flex the capabilities they had to meet market demand. And at the moment, they didn't have that. So our job was to help organizations build more agile, flexible capability models. So that's the client side. On the talent side, on the independent side, we again made a big bet, which was individuals had historically connected their identity to their company. They saw their security as being something given to them through permanent employment. And they prioritized longevity and job title, right? And that's how we built our careers, and that's how I built my career. What changed was the myth of job security and a permanent job was busted. So through all that volatility on the client side, you know, many people were disrupted. And so people started to realize that this deep emotional relationship I have with my company is a business relationship, and this security is a security that could end immediately. So actually, what is the long-term security here? And therefore, if I can't rely on my company to be my security, I need to build my own brand equity. My identity can't be my company. My security needs to come through me. At which point we said people will focus on accumulating knowledge, expertise, and experience over job title and longevity, and will seek more control, more flexibility, and more choice, and will build portfolio-based careers. So our job was really there to solve for that problem around how do we help individuals become in control of their lives and become an independent and be successful as an independent. So how do we help people build their independent careers? And our job there is really to be their advocate, to solve problems and bring them growth opportunities to build their own independent careers and businesses.
And what you say completely resonates, because just in the last couple of days, you've been reading reports of how everyone from Tesla, business that has been expanding, has just laid off 10% of their workforce, but also in one of your target markets, the consulting business, the McKinseys, the Boston Consulting Groups, the BCGs of this world are laying off consultants by the thousands. And that's where your service offerings, virtual benches, contracting as a service really come into play, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So why is that happening? That's the first question we need to ask ourselves. And the reason why it's happening isn't because these companies don't have good futures or aren't going to grow. It's because the market is changing, their needs are changing, and therefore the capabilities they had, they don't need anymore. Or for a period of time, they need to lower their cost base. But lots of these companies in 6 months, 12 months time may be hiring again, right? So that's why the fixed capability model for me is just not the right way to go, because it disrupts the whole sector, the whole economic environment and people's lives. So what we've brought to market is a number of solutions for clients that help them make this transition into this flexible workforce. And if we just talk through some of those, the first one where we came to market was talent on demand, which is what it says on the box, right? I need a capability tomorrow. Get me that capability. Let me onboard it in days instead of months, right? Let me leverage that capability to execute a piece of work, and then I can remove that capability and that cost as when it's not required anymore. And that's where we really started to build the business, and we got significant growth. But where the business has evolved, which I'm really excited about, is we've now launched our virtual bench product. So this is a product that enterprises can use and access to actually, I call it an independent workforce in a box. It's a product through which you can build your own curated independent parallel workforce that sits on the side of your core permanent workforce, allows you to run a really streamlined, focused core, and then ramp up and ramp down capabilities through your independent workforce that's sitting there ready to go as and when you need it. And that's where we're seeing huge traction and interest from our client base, where we can build, manage, and maintain that workforce, and they can access it through, a single product, a single platform, and still deliver a great experience to those independents.
How is this different from a very traditional, and this is going back 30 years, 40 years, the traditional contract staffing model of the body shopping business? What's changed? What is your value proposition different from companies that are offering that traditional service?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. You can imagine it's a question we have to answer. We answer a lot. So I'll take it really down to one key component, which is when you look at those traditional contract recruitment solutions, and this isn't to, there are many good players out there, right? But in general, the recruitment sector in our markets, Asia, Africa, Middle East, haven't evolved or innovated or enhanced the way they work. And I would describe them in general as CV databases. So you give them a job description and they throw 10, 20 CVs at you. You then have to interview all these people, some of whom will be completely irrelevant, some of whom may be relevant.
Because the consultant is 25 years old and doesn't know what the business needs are.
Exactly. The individual it's transactional. It's let me throw as much at this as I can, and maybe something will stick and I'll earn some commission out of it, right? And if you were to ask most organizations and talent who deal with traditional recruiters, they will see them as an unavoidable necessity. But they don't say, I love my recruiter. Now there are many good ones out there, but I'd say in general, they'll say recruitment and using traditional recruitment is painful, it's low value, it's transactional, and a lot of the work lands with the client. And the value proposition is not significantly adding value. So where we really differentiated was we built community. So what we've done is, as I said at the beginning, the independents are our customers. So the first thing is we're dedicated to independents. We don't do perm hiring. We are the independent. We are the home of independence. That's the first critical thing. We don't do anything else, no matter what other business opportunities are, we're focused on that. And we have built out, up until now, 30,000 professional independents. So these are people that aren't moonlighting on the side, aren't doing evening weekends work. These are people that want to build an independent career. And we've now built a curated community of 30,000. What do I mean by community? These are people we know, we understand, they know us. We provide them with content, with resources, with solutions, with tools. We run events, we see them, we meet with them. We're developing added value services for them to solve problems such as access to financial services, or access to training, or access to admin and compliance solutions, access to community. So we've really treated them as a customer. And what therefore that allows us to do, and through our platform where we've built really great matching algorithms and matching capability with a human service wrapped around it, we're able to ensure that, one, we have a really great curated community of talent that are engaged and ready and open to opportunities. We built a product at the center that's really smart at helping us match demand, the skills that are required by the client to the right individual. So it's not JD matching, it's skills-based, right? Capability-based, right? Matching. And then we have a human service wrapped around it that delivers a great service experience, right? So a lot of technology businesses think that the answer is everything has to be tech. In my view, ultimately, you have to solve the business need. You have to meet the need of your customer. And our customers absolutely are happy to use technology. But in this space, you also have to deliver some services around it. And so I think that's really worked for us. So to summarize, one, we built community, a curated community. We treat them as a customer. Two, we built a great product that allows us to match, very effectively, which means that, to give you an example, we can provide clients with options on average within 2 to 5 days. They have 2 to 3 options. High quality, 90% matches to their requirements in 2 to 5 days. If they select someone, they can onboard them in a matter of days. So from the day they give us, if they give us a requirement on a Monday, they can be interviewing by the Wednesday, and they can have someone started on a Monday. Now, I don't think you could go to many contract recruiters and get that service and experience. Hopefully that answers the question.
Absolutely, because obviously a lot of what you said resonates with me. Again, as I've mentioned, and this is a disclaimer to the audience, I run a recruitment business. So Anurag
That's why I was being careful. That's why I was being careful. Like, yeah.
And so I completely align with what he says, the challenges, the way we operate, the opportunities, and how the businesses. Unfortunately, the industry is very transactional. So Anurag, point taken, and I think from our value systems, the value systems are aligned. It's about treating your talent right. It's about treating the customer right as well, not to offload all the shortlisting work on the client by bombarding them with 20 CVs, one of which is basically irrelevant.
Exactly. And the talent for us aren't the product. The talent is our customer, and the client's our customer. The product is our platform that sits in between. Whereas I think a lot of people operating in their talent space think that the individual is just the product they're gonna monetize. And I think that's where a lot of it falls over. And I think as long as you are adding value to your customer, you will get rewarded for it. And I've always believed in that. Add value to your customer, and they will reward you for it. Solve their problems, and they will reward you for it. And I think that's really worked. That's really worked well for us.
So Anurag, now zooming in on Southeast Asia, where Outsized is new, what are some of the key trends that you're seeing? Obviously, you've done a talent report, talent in demand report. Share with us some of the insights from that report. Obviously, that helps you in terms of targeting the right customers, right opportunities. Obviously, targeting markets like Australia, which is a very heavy contracting market, which I think is a big growth area for you. Give us some insights.
Absolutely. So first thing is we've now been in Southeast Asia for 4 years, and it's our fastest growing market. So I was initially running our India business. I moved here to launch our Southeast Asia business 4 years ago, and it's our biggest business, and it's tripled and then doubled, and we'll double again hopefully this year. So it's a real growth market for us, but it is a region. So the first thing to say is you have different dynamics happening in different markets. So we operate across Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines, Vietnam, Cambodia. So all of these markets we operate in, and then from here we've also started to operate a lot in Hong Kong. We've done some work in Japan and Korea, and now we're expanding into Australia, and they all have their own market dynamics. But let's start with macro, and then we can maybe go into some specifics. So overall, Southeast Asia, we're seeing really great growth metrics on both sides. I would say the demand side is like preaching to the converted. So big businesses in this region have a big focus on fixed cost. That's driving a lot of it, right? So how do I reduce my fixed cost? But still, I've got to deliver for my shareholders. That doesn't mean I can't stop delivering on my strategy, on my ideas, or my new products, my new services, or my transformation, or my efficiency projects. So they still need to get things done, but they need to get things done with a lower cost base. So big organizations at strategic level, we're seeing C-suites, senior talent leaders, but also CEOs, right? Actually stating a big part of their strategy is on innovating their talent models. So moving to more flexible talent models and shifting how they get jobs done. So that's one thing we're really seeing on the demand side, organizations strategically looking at actually driving this change. So you're sort of preaching to the converti. 7 years ago when we came to market, organizations were, what is this? Why would these people want to do, why wouldn't we want to own them? Terminology like acquiring and retaining, it was all about owning, right? Now it's about, hey, we understand we need to change how we operate. So that's the first thing. On the talent side, we're seeing different markets evolve in different ways. So certain markets, if you take Malaysia, we've seen great innovation on the visa side, which has really created a lot of flexibility. So there's now a freelancer visa in Malaysia, where anyone can go and work as a freelancer for a year in Malaysia, right? And you get a visa very easily. So that's allowed Malaysia to attract a lot of talent, to create these flexible workforces, bring in talent from outside of Malaysia, as well as allow people within the market. Whereas if you take a Thailand, it's harder to be an independent in Thailand. It's harder for people that aren't local nationals to become a freelancer or to travel for independent work. So we're seeing differences in infrastructure, in regulation, that are either constraining or driving the talent side. So that's some of the dynamics happening. But overall, what we're seeing is a lot of demand, as you can imagine, in digital transformation and technology transformation. So a lot of work with incumbents on transformation, whether it's the front end, changing how they actually engage their customers and how they deliver their services, changes on middle layer in terms of core technology, and then changes in terms of data, right? Moving to cloud, driving enhancement of how they actually manage their data, store their data, leverage their data. So we're seeing significant transformation on the digital and tech side. And that's across the board. Then what we're seeing in Southeast Asia is a lot of innovation. So a lot of venture building, big incumbents looking at how do they build the next iteration of their business? Can they do partnerships? Can they launch new ventures? Can they do spin-offs? Can they do tech versions of their core business? So you've seen the digital banks, right? Proliferating across the markets. A lot of them sponsored and driven by incumbent players. And then interestingly enough, obviously a lot of companies are looking at sustainability. How do I incorporate sustainability and ESG into my products and services? You're seeing a lot of customers now looking at tech and AI. How do I use AI and new technology and data in the real world, in my business? So they're trying to grapple with that. And how will this change my business? What are the threats? What are the opportunities? And then interestingly, supply chain. No one often thinks about supply chain as glamorous, but huge opportunities in optimizing and driving efficiency and reviewing supply chains. So we're seeing that actually significant transformation on the supply chain side, especially with a lot of disruption on supply chains due to things like COVID or economic disruption or political, social issues.
Anurag, it's been a fascinating conversation. I think I've been enlightened, and I'm sure our audience has been as well. But before we leave, any final thoughts you'd like to leave your audience with?
Yeah, I think the big thing, and if I say one thing for each side, for the client side, I think the big takeaway is there is this new animal out there. There's this new breed of talent. And understanding that individual, their motivations, their ambitions, and what they need from you is going to be critical for being successful in this place and being an employer that high-quality independents want to work with. So I think thinking about the employee value proposition for an independent over a perm is going to be a big evolution for clients, and thinking about those models. For independents, I think it's really about being aware that this career exists, that there is a way to build a career as an independent. And I'd say in Outsized, we're doing a lot of work to help people transition and make that leap, because it does feel at times for people like quite an anxious decision to make, right? So I'd say think about it carefully. use the resources available to you, and educate yourself before you take that leap to make sure you've understood that environment, because there are challenges as well as upsides.
Anurag, thank you very much for taking your time to be on the show.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Now, I'm Brian Fernandez, and this has been Biztech's Jobs and Careers Show. We've been speaking to Anurag Bhalla. He's the co-founder and managing director for Asia Pacific at Outsized. This video and podcast will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thanks a lot for tuning in.